This week on our AMP America Week in Review, Crystal Mangum finally admits the truth 18 years after the Duke lacrosse scandal. What does this mean for justice and accountability? Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is facing backlash for bending the knee to the woke mob. Can you ever win when playing by the woke mob's rules? And finally, Taylor Lorenz is sparking outrage with her shocking reaction to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Johnson. What does this say about the state of our culture? You don't want to miss it. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Well, happy Saturday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on another fun-filled edition of the Brian Nichols Show. I am your forever host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We've missed you. I know I've been busy. Remzo has been busy. So today we have a lot to unpack. But first, yes, a shout out to our special studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle, folks. 'Tis the season to give the gift of heart health. And if you want to, in fact, give the best gift of heart health that will help lower your friend's resting blood pressure, it will lower their heart rate, it will improve their pump at the gym, or heck, if you are your own friend, this is a perfect opportunity for you to improve your heart health with Cardio Miracle. Use code TBNS at checkout for 15% off. More about Cardio Miracle later on in today's episode. But yes, for today's episode, we're talking all things the history of woke. Going back to 2006, we're going to look at the Duke lacrosse case because there's been some revelations there. We're going to talk about Caitlin Clark bending the knee to, saying that she has to understand the privilege she has as a member of the WNBA, playing with a bunch of minorities, I guess. So we have to talk about that. And of course, we're going to talk about Taylor Lorenz finding joy and giggling at the idea of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, being assassinated. I can't do all this today on my own, so I need my forever co-host to return and join today. It is our good friend Remzo Martinez. Welcome back to the program. What's new, buddy?
It is that time of year where you're starting to feel that people are looking forward to 2025, except the liberals. And it is so funny. I just I can genuinely say that throughout the Biden presidency, I didn't spend every day of my life going online and complaining about Joe Biden. In fact, I could probably go weeks on end without thinking of Joe Biden. And it's always so funny how, the joy people, the people who are, for like happiness and all that shit, are just like the angriest, most insufferable motherfuckers you will ever find. And you just can't help but just want to smile at them. Just want to smile at them. That's all I got to say about that.
No, I'm right there with you, buddy. I would be smiling a lot more if it wasn't for our first story that we're going to talk about today, because let's go back to 2006, which I know for a lot of folks listening, that seems like an eternity ago. I mean, if you're under the age of 20, you weren't even born yet. So yeah, this is obviously a really, going back a long way there, Remzo. Not really. But let's look at this case, because in 2006, there was a group of Duke lacrosse players who were accused of raping this girl on the Duke lacrosse campus at this party. It became a huge national story. It turned into this breakdown of this this racist, sexist argument, this very woke, culturally woke argument against these white Duke lacrosse players, and it was this black girl who was sexually assaulted on the campus, which, if true, is horrifying. Except, Remzo, it wasn't true. There's a lot of red flags back in 2006, and if you raise those questions up, you were deemed a racist, you were deemed a sexist. And fast forward to 2024, and of course, with all time, eventually the truth does come out, and the truth has come out, and it's not, something that was revolutionarily discovered or anything like that, but rather just from the accuser's own mouth. So first, we're going to go ahead and take a listen to Crystal Mangum herself in her own words. She was over on a podcast, and she basically just spilled the beans saying, yeah, I wasn't raped. Let's take a listen.
And I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't. And that was wrong. and I betrayed the trust of a lot of other people who believed in me. Um, and made up a story that wasn't true because I wanted validation from people and not from God. And that was wrong. And
So Remzo, that's the statement from Crystal Mangum. We just have to remember this happened in 2006. You fast forward to the 2010s. This is the moment of the Me Too era really starting to pick up, right? You fast forward to 2015, 2016. That's when Me Too, that was leading the headlines. And I would dare say, Remzo, right? A lot of this talk started around the time of the Duke lacrosse case. This was the Franz Ferdinand, right, getting assassinated in World War I to kind of kick off the war.
Oh,
That's the
that's a good
same
way
idea.
to describe it. That's a good way. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Look at me. I'm doing some stuff today. I love it.
On a
But no,
roll,
like
yeah.
Remzo, this right here, this was the case that set off the spark. So let's look at this now. Obviously, 2020 vision, right? We can look at things from historical context and what this turned into. But let's just address the elephant in the room. She lied. She admits she lied. She put this entire case on a national platform, and she basically ruined the lives of three, I think more than three, but at least three for sure guys on the Duke lacrosse team. How did we get here? / how did nobody push back harder against the insanity to let this become a narrative that we all kind of just we ran with for 20 years?
Over the last couple months, you and I have actually poked fun a lot at what I consider to be nerd propaganda.
Yep.
And I think that, the lockdowns, not to spend too much time on that, really showed us that, we're willing to vilify the people who culturally we have always designated as the bullies. They're the pretty people, they're the rich people, they're the connected people, they're the athletic people, they're the gym bros, they're the cheerleaders, they're the frat guys.
Yep.
And on a personal story, I went to a military junior college in Alabama, and when I was graduating and I was figuring out where I wanted to go for to finish off undergrad, I wanted to go back to Virginia, and the University of Virginia was on my short list of schools to apply to. I did not apply to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville because in 2013, 2014, there was, I think it was a Rolling Stones reporter
Yep.
who wrote about a rape, a very violent rape that occurred during a frat party. And this story of which, this girl was forcefully, forced alcohol, and she was dragged into some frat guy's room, and these UVA frat guys tried to rape her. That went ahead and sparked investigations and outrages prior to when Me Too really took off. But fraternities were getting investigated and kicked off campuses and shut down. The frat guy enemy became something that you could just easily attack.
Yep.
And I looked at that and I'm like, I don't want to be associated with a school that has that much of a black eye on it, which is so funny because I went and graduated from Liberty University, which is a whole other story. But, that was, I wasn't paying much attention at the time. However, what I found to be hilarious, it was, this was around the same time that you had that basketball player who was caught. I don't know if it was Ray Rice, but somebody was caught beating their girlfriend in an elevator, and then he dragged her out.
Oh yeah, that was for the Baltimore Ravens. That was that was Ray Rice. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
that
running
was
back for the Ravens.
Ray Rice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the media was largely trying to ignore it even after the video came out. So here you had an example where it's like the black athlete, they don't want to go after the black athlete because he's a black man. And the media had gone after Mike Vick so much because when it comes to black people, animals supersede black people. So if you're abusing animals, you can target black guys. But if you have a black guy who's an athlete or a celebrity who's beating a woman, you can't go as hard, except if the woman is black. If the woman is black, you can go after her. If the woman is white, you have to question whether or not, some people at CNN would say, did she have it coming or something? So look at all that. Wow, all that was so horrible for me to say out loud, but it's the truth. Anyway, this was a situation where, as the media is trying to figure out how they're going to go ahead and paint those narratives, the UVA rape situation occurs. And within
Yep.
about a year, they find out that the reporter made up the whole story. I think they gave her a Pulitzer for that. And they
Wow.
didn't pull it back because then the narrative became, well, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean it couldn't happen. And it's like, what type of stupid person mental gymnastics does it take to say that? Just say you lied. Just say you lied. Because what they tried to spin it as was, well, we're shining a light on what could be happening. And they were waiting for other people to then come justify the story. However, they still went forward with it, and then nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it, and the media is great about that. It's just like Iraqi soldiers marching into Kuwait, taking hammers to babies in incubators. That testimony that woman used to go ahead and justify the Gulf War and stuff like that. Like there's many examples. We don't need to go into it, but now fast forward to this in 2008, 2009, a book comes out, and I went ahead and pulled it up. It's called Until Proven Innocent, Political Correctness and the Shameful Injustices of the Duke Lacrosse Rape Case. And I'm trying to see when this came out. This came out in September 2008. I don't know why my mom made me read this book, but I think my mom saw something coming because what we call woke now used to be political correctness.
Yep.
And reading this book, actually seeing what was going on with the trial from the defendants and from the prosecutor sides of things, I knew even back then, being a middle schooler at that point, that these students, these lacrosse players, did not rape that stripper. But for years, people still say shit about Duke lacrosse. For years, they still wanted to paint the frat guy, college athlete, white affluent dude as a sexual predator, a
Yep.
hypersexual predator, and they used Duke lacrosse. When in fact, it was not true. It was not true. Now, what I also really remember about this period, because I remember watching it on CNN as it was happening, was you also had another case, I think about a year prior to that. It was the case of Andrew Meyer being tased at the University of Florida, the infamous "Don't Tase Me, Bro." He has this book out called "Don't Tase Me, Bro. My Life is a Meme," and it's basically Andrew's tell-all as to what really happened. And the media tried to paint Andrew Meyer as a belligerent, college hooligan who wanted to just go ahead and harass John Kerry as he was on a speaking tour years after his failed presidential campaign, when reality is that Andrew Meyer was a Democrat. He had voted for John Kerry. He was a journalist, and he was asking him legitimate questions, and John Kerry didn't like it. So John Kerry had Andrew Meyer assaulted by local police, and then they made an example of him by tasing him. Andrew Meyer would go on to be the first meme. So what you have right now is you have the beginning of meme culture. Political correctness is morphing into wokeness because political correctness used to be targeted towards everybody but liberals. It used
Yep.
to be, oh, the conservatives, the right wingers. That's how I remember them growing up as a video gamer. I was like, these right wingers are going after my rock and roll and my TV and my movies and my MTV and my video games. I mean, Bill Maher's show used to be, political correctness or
That was
something
literally, yeah,
like
the
that.
whole idea of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one of the situations where I try not to look too much into the timing of things, but I think it's just so funny that she chooses right after the election of Donald Trump, the most uncancelable man you could possibly find, to finally come clean of this. And in many ways, as we're going into 2025, to have Trump return, to have all these people finally saying, maybe we shouldn't treat half the country like domestic terrorists, for this woman and for all the pain she has caused, I will say I commend her for telling the truth now, because what does she have to gain from that? You always have to ask, what does the other person have to gain from that? She has nothing to gain from this. She has nothing to gain from this. That's a whole other topic in terms of forgiveness, but you know, the truth came out, and it came out from her, and that means something.
When you look at where this took place in the context of our history, you mentioned going from the political correctness to the wokeism, right? There was something else that was happening at that same time, right, Remzo? And that was the birth of social media. And as these stories were able to quickly start to be looked at through a critical lens versus the way it used to be when you'd be sitting down having dinner at night with your family watching the evening news, and you'd be told this is what happened, right? And it was being told from a level of authority that this is Walter Cronkite sitting there telling you that's the way it was, and that was the truth. That was the news. Versus people now being able to go outside of that acceptable, the acceptable medium, the trusted medium, and start to talk about this stuff on their own online and start to question the official narratives. And you fast forward, I mean, this was 10 years before Trump becomes president. And we were talking about our old days back at the Libertarian Republic. And we used to have our buddy there, Micah, who wrote an article, which we got to find it in the archive somewhere, Remzo, but how
This is like some Nostradamus shit. It was an article basically how Duke lacrosse gave the rise to Donald Trump. And it really was in his thesis was that while Duke lacrosse may have been the birth of woke culture, it was also the birth of the reactionary
yes,
force to that, which is if you're going to attack something, understand it might not shrink, it might get stronger, because then you use that justification to attack something to attack everything.
yes, and
And that projection is what brings the rise to Donald Trump. I even used to joke if liberals had been nicer to Mitt Romney, Donald Trump would have been nicer to them.
if they had been nicer to Mitt Romney, we wouldn't have had a Donald Trump presidency, because it probably would have been a Mitt Romney 2012 victory if they actually treated the election fairly.
It was, Trump in many ways in 2016 was the anti-Romney because of that. And much like, because you went after our white wealthy lacrosse players, now we're going to go ahead and double down with that in some ways. You see it with college campuses. It was almost like the Republicans, the young college Republicans were suddenly now dressing more like, young professionals. I used to call them young old guys, like, prematurely aged guys. There's a reason why Turning Point people actually look like they dress their age now. And they don't dress like, they're going to run for the newest copy of National Review. They've embraced their youth. That's a whole other topic. But it's one of those situations where they never got, this book, Until Proven Innocent, came out in 2008. It was a bestseller. It did go ahead and give a lot of people insights into this. I actually lent this book to my criminal justice teacher in high school. And I remember him reading it and giving it back to me like, I never knew any of this. Like, it's wild. But, this you remember this? Do you remember where the term cancel came from? There was this woman who, when Twitter was really getting up and going,
Wait, is this she goes in the flight?
yeah, she was on the flight.
Yeah,
And
this
they
is
were
a
trying to
story. Yeah.
cancel her. Yeah, this woman was on Twitter, didn't have a massive following at all. She's flying from the United States, I think, to Africa, and she's like making these really mean insults and jokes about the people on the plane who are from Africa flying back to Africa. And while she was on the plane, people on Twitter were trying to find where she worked. They were trying to find who she was related to. I think they got her fired from her job.
Yep.
They got her father's work contact, and they
She
tried to get her.
literally is getting off the plane, taking her phone off airplane mode, and just ding, 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 ding. All these notifications coming in saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry about what's happening." Like, "Oh my gosh, I heard the news," and she's like, "What the fuck is happening?" To find out all of this afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is I find it so funny, and I mean, I don't think we were going to talk about it, but like the whole situation of Daniel Penny. I know that you did an episode earlier this week breaking down the verdict and everything regarding him getting his freedom back. Like, it's so funny. I'm seeing Joy Reid and others on TV talking about how Republicans are embracing vigilantism, but liberals have been, the proprietors of mob justice for forever. I mean, this is just they move the goalpost
Yeah.
each and every time. And what I would like to see is I would like to see not just, this woman apologize to each of them to their face, but I would like to see Al Sharpton do so. I would like to see Jesse Jackson do so. I mean, Jesse Jackson's been canceled since he said he wanted to snip Obama's balls off in 2009. But, I want to see Oprah apologize. But, you've got like the Miss Pats of the world who will be like, well, no, because she black. It was so what? They might have done it. And it's just like, it's the truth. You admit the truth. There is no other truth. There is just the truth. She lied. She ruined their lives. She emboldened the worst people. And I'm glad that the truth is out. And I commend her for telling the truth finally and taking ownership over it. But it can't just be her. It's got to be the other people that used her as an opportunity to attack everybody for everything, for every horrible chain of events that we have had to deal with the last going on 15 years.
Well, and Remzo, you set it up for a perfect segue because this translates right into the next story, right? And this is now where we are in 2024, and some folks just still not getting it. And that is one athlete of the year, Caitlin Clark of the Indiana Fever, who had took over the WNBA by storm. Because she was a rookie, and say it out loud, she's a white girl playing in the black WNBA. And all of a sudden, Remzo, after a year of pretty much everybody coalescing around Caitlin Clark as helping be a savior to the WNBA because people were starting to actually watch it, what does she do? She has to go and bend the knee to speak to the truth of well, they are her coworkers, but her teammates, the truth of the other folks in the WNBA. But here we are today, Remzo, in that narrative, right? The truth versus my truth. It's not landing anymore. And Scott Jennings over on CNN, God, this guy has turned into one of my favorite people to pay attention to because he goes on CNN and he just got this aw shucks demeanor and he diffuses all of the insanity. But let's really quickly take a listen to Scott Jennings because I think he knocks this out of the park. This whole the truth versus my truth argument. Let's take a listen.
Why is she being bullied?
Why is that wrong?
Why is she being bullied for acknowledging something that's smart, truth, and factual?
Well, a couple things. Number one, whether you're an athlete or anyone else, if I hear you use the phrase "my truth," I immediately then discount everything else you say because there isn't my truth or your truth. There's just the truth. And when you start using phrases like that, it tells me that
That's not true.
Your brain has been captured by something that I don't really respect.
That's not true.
Number two.
That's not true.
Number two.
Really quick, I just love when he says there is the truth and my truth. What does she jump in? That's not true. Thank you for proving his point, sweetheart.
I love this man. He must be protected at all costs.
Oh, at all costs. At all costs.
Amazing. And it was all because of her. She is an amazing player. The arenas were full when she played in them. The TV ratings were up when she was on television. That's undeniable. But the league still lost like $40 million this year. And it's never made money.
By the way, just this is the Cavalier. Yeah, well, sure. Of course it still lost $40 million. Like, that's not a problem, right? That's not an issue. But just, I'm sorry.
What is a $40 million loss in entertainment for social justice, Brian?
Oh man, well, we just gotta go ahead and figure out what does Rachel Maddow make? Wasn't it like $25 million a year or some silly number? Is that justice? Is that the truth, or is that my truth? Let's continue. Sorry.
And to me, when you're talking about having respecting people who built something, what did they build? A league that loses money every year? She has the capacity.
What do you mean? What did they build? What do you mean? What did they build?
What kind of a business did they build?
The reason why it's still up and still running, whether it's losing money or not, is because of these black women who are in this.
Isn't it because
And
of the
so,
investors?
no, stop it. You stop it now.
It's not. I was in Dickie's arena.
Go, Scott. Go.
Let me just tell you.
It says more about the people who are getting offended by it than her.
I think they're just disappointed that she appears to have been captured by the woke mob.
You don't like the
She's
word.
And here's the disappointment.
It's the white privilege.
Let him articulate this because I want to learn something.
I feel a little bad for her because she's going to learn that it will never be enough. No matter how much of the phrasing, no matter how much of the groveling you do, it will never be enough for the people in that league that hate her guts.
Why do you assume
They hate her
that
guts.
why do you assume that she is trying to pander? Isn't it
Because
also,
I hear the language. It's the language of the pander. I hear the phrase white privilege. Sports is the one place where nobody on the field has any privilege at all.
Here it
She
is.
doesn't get extra points when she shoots because she's white. She gets the same number of points as anybody else. Sports is the great equalizer. And it just felt like to a lot of people that she was groveling for no reason, because she is an amazing player who deserves all the accolades she's getting right now for doing what she is groveling.
We're just going to go back, and for the video watcher, please watch this lady commentator whose name I don't know. Just watch her facial expressions when Scott lays down not his truth, Remzo, the truth.
The truth.
And you can literally see just every ounce of restraint keeping her just dying inside. Watch this again.
For no reason, because she is an amazing player who deserves all the accolades she's getting right now for doing what she's doing for women's basketball.
All right, we
Oh shit! Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Sorry.
Field has any privilege at all. She doesn't get extra points when she shoots because she's white. She gets the same number of points as anybody else. Sports is the great equalizer, and it just felt
and that face right there, right? We're just gonna make this screen big. Look at the absolute disdain she has for him for saying the truth out loud, right? And this is where
I have a counter take on that, but please finish.
Okay, well, but this right here, this is where the idea of sports destroys the leftist argument, because Scott's spot on. The moment you step foot on that court, the arguments of privilege, the arguments of racism, the arguments of some folks being looked at better than others, it goes out the window. Why? Because now you are competing based on what you can actually bring to your team, bring to the value of the game, bring to the value of trying to win the actual the competition. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what shoe size you are, how tall. I mean, well, yes, how tall you are, but right there, it's a meritocracy. And all of the arguments, all of the privilege, all of the my truth arguments go out the window when you have, just to his point, she's not making more points when she scores. She's not, there's no extra little, caveats for Caitlin Clark. She was a good player. She is a good player. And just, they hate the fact, and I say the supporters of the woke mob and this leftist mentality, they love the idea of the WNBA because it was some place that was a safe space, right? There was no white lady coming in and starting to actually do well relative to the black athletes. And all of a sudden, here comes this white girl who's doing well. What? No, we can't have this. And you know what? She needs to bend her knee to the woke mob. And if she doesn't, what are we going to do? We're going to shame her. We're going to physically bully her on the court. And her own teammates aren't going to stand up and defend her against the other players who are literally bodying her, throwing elbows, throwing shoulders, tripping her. No. Why? Because she needs to learn her lesson. She's a white girl coming into our space. How dare she? And I'm sorry, the results on the court destroy all that argument. And it makes me frustrated, Remzo, to see someone who I would dare say Caitlin really avoided the political conversations to now say, I have to bend the knee to this because I fear for my success as a WNBA basketball star. I fear for my long-term ability to grow beyond being Caitlin Clark, the basketball player, to Caitlin Clark, the sports figure during my time as a player and beyond. That's kind of what I see. Now, hit me with what you see and maybe a little bit of the pushback from your different take there.
So 4 points under 4 minutes. Gonna try and hyperspace this. One, don't know why everyone likes Caitlin Clark so much. I'm all about that Angel Reese life, LSU's greatest, just saying. And Angel Reese is an example of what Caitlin should have been, because Angel Reese was one calling out the Bidens for showing more favoritism to the white teams that they beat versus the LSU women's basketball team that should have been the first priority visit to the White House after they won. So there's that. Two, she went ahead and also said that she doesn't know what the deal with Kamala Harris is. Was not a fan of Kamala Harris. Did not endorse Kamala Harris. Didn't endorse Trump. But straight up said it could have been easy. She could have gone to a rally. She could have gotten a book.
But hey, Remzo, that's your name. Is it fair to say that the reason she was able to make those arguments is because, and again, let's just address the elephant in the room, because she's black. She can make that claim. And if Caitlin Clark makes it, she's a racist.
Yes, which is why she didn't go further. And maybe she just didn't like Harris, but she also didn't like Trump. If she had gone for Trump, she would have been told that she's not black anymore and that she lost her black card and that, whatever. So there's a degree of that, but I just want to throw that out there. Secondly, I think that lady on CNN was turned on by Scott. I think she was like, disagree with me harder. This echo chamber. Oh, I can't take it anymore. Tell me why I'm wrong, Daddy. Yeah. No, I think she's like, I like this guy.
You can feel
I
it
like
right
this
there,
guy.
right? We're just watching the B-roll. She's like, oh, I wish you would stop speaking truth. Let me get my hair out of my eyes just to show him that I am paying attention.
Just hit me with your truth.
hit me with your truth, please.
Truth. I want your truth, Scott.
Sorry to like the 100 or so folks who are joining us here live on Twitter. That Rems and I are using our bedtime voices when we're talking about the nice lady here on CNN talking to Scott Jennings.
Do I really think that? No. Do I think if I said that, that would piss people off? Like, she's not turned on by him. It's like, yeah, I do. Third, no matter how much you struggle no matter how much you go through these struggle sessions and grovel to people that hate you, all that does is nothing. All that does is it reaffirms what they want to believe as their truth, and it wins you nothing. You're just a useful idiot. And you see this in race politics like anything else. My X handle, I put subpar Puerto Rican after the whole, Puerto Rico joke fiasco a couple months ago. And I'm like, I don't need anyone to tell me who I am and what I'm not. And this has gone too far. But my final point being that, when and you mentioned it, Brian, so not much for me to add, but when right now in culture today, and I'm not talking about 100 years ago, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking right now in the America we actually live in.
Yep.
When a black individual goes into a predominantly white field, they are celebrated. When a white individual goes into a black dominated field, they are treated like second to trash. The biggest example, Eminem.
Expand.
Everyone was attacking him, not because he was bad. Everyone objectively said he was good. I think it was Dr. Dre who said that he is the greatest rapper of all time. I think it was also Dr. Dre or Snoop Dogg that said the reason why black people hate Eminem is because he's better at rap than any of them. And for years, it took Eminem to crawl out from not just like the Vanilla Ice era, where people thought that that's where white rappers were, but now they all go to do collabs with him. I mean, this dude dated Rihanna. Forget how woke and shit he is right now. Eminem was the white guy in the black space. And it really was not until like the mid 2000s where that ended. So it's just, people are trying to define what black culture is. It's almost like a control mechanism. And you see it in entertainment, you see it in media. White people do not see themselves as this gross collective that I think a lot of the power mongers in the black community see themselves as. And for Caitlin Clark to do this, one, shame on her. Shame on her. But secondly, what it also does is if I were black, I would almost find it to be condescending in a way. Because it's almost like saying, well, Caitlin Clark is slumming it with us black athletes. Like, it's almost worse. When you try and double down and even appeal to the wokeness, it actually just comes off worse. It's almost like saying, yeah, I believe in, like white supremacy because I am a white supremacist. And even though I'm against it, like unintentionally, everything I do is an act of privilege and all this other stupid shit. In my first book, Stay Away from Libertarians in 2018, I spoke about the hierarchy of political correctness. And that's why earlier when I was talking about Mike Vick, it's like you can go after Mike Vick because Mike Vick hurt dogs. And liberals, especially white liberal women, love animals more than they love people. So he stopped being black. They removed the blackness. He just became a man. He became a toxic man. But you can go ahead and be a guy who's brutally assaulting, harming their spouse. But if I'm not even going to say the race. If X race is the husband and Y race is the wife, you have to ask, okay, what was the race of the wife? If she's white, and the other guy is not white, what did she do? If it's the same situation, it's, well, we don't want to get involved because we don't want to go ahead and encourage stereotypes. We should just let things play out the way they do. It's
Which
one of the reasons why when Rihanna was being brutally beaten by Chris Brown,
Yep.
people were quiet.
Yep. And you mentioned it earlier. Let's just bring this home from current event. The Daniel Penny case, right? Daniel Penny, a white Marine on the subway, ended up putting Jordan Neely in a chokehold because Jordan Neely, a black man, was a schizophrenic drug user and was making overtly physical threats to the members of the subway, or who are on the subway, the actual riders there. And Daniel Penny put him in a restraint, which ended up being a submission chokehold. And Jordan Neely ended up succumbing from that, plus all of the drugs and crap that was in his system. You factor that with
much like literal Floyd.
Basically. And
let's
you
just say it. Let's just say it now. Everyone knows the truth now.
It's George Floyd 4 years later. And then you foil that, Remzo, with literally, I forget the gentleman's name, but a copy and paste example of this exact case in the subway in New York City around the same time as this Daniel Penny Jordan Neely case, only though it was reversed. It wasn't not reversed. It was a black man putting another black man into a submission chokehold. Or no, I think he ended up stabbing the guy, and the guy died. And the argument was that the guy who stabbed the guy on the subway did so in self-defense. No charges were filed. Not even a question. Nobody ever heard about this until.
Wasn't the other guy a cop?
He might have been. I'm not sure. He may have been, but I just know from like the whole. You go into the race thing, right?
Yeah.
It was a black man subduing another black man. You hear nothing. It's a white dude doing it, and all of a sudden it becomes the #1 story on the evening news. It opens up questions around racism in America. It's like, no, it doesn't. It goes back to the truth. People do not want to go onto a subway and feel that they are going to be facing bodily harm just for being there, because we can't stop somebody, regardless of their color, or who is being an insane person, from being an insane person. Like, no, people want to feel safe in their own communities. They want to be able to go on the subway and not worry about some schizophrenic drug user potentially putting them, their families, their loved ones in harm's way. Like, anybody with common sense would think that that's the way. And just God bless her, Marianne Williamson, her and all of her crystals. She's one of the main voices right now on the liberal left. Who's like
magic. Our psychic forces.
Well, let's get some psychic forces going her way, because she's the one, she's one of the ones who's leading with, this is horrible. This is just a terrible travesty of justice, a miscarriage of justice. It's like, Marianne Williamson, I'm just going to say it. I pray to God you never find yourself in a situation where you're in need of a Daniel Penny. I said that on Twitter. And you know what? One of the top responses underneath my post when I commented on her post about that was, actually, Brian, I think she needs to have a situation where there is a Daniel Penny that she needs. You want to know why? Because a lot of these leftists, and again, this is the argument I heard on Twitter, a lot of these leftists, they live in make-believe land. They live in fa-la-la-la-la ding-dong world, where it's just like nothing is real unless it becomes real, right? And it's like, you can make any my truth arguments, it will not get away from the truth. And the truth in this case is real life. And to your point earlier, right? We got to live in 2024, man. Like, we can't keep living in these make-believe yesteryear worlds. This like, it almost feels like just like a leftist wokeism type of person's wet dream of a victimized society where anybody in their world can become a victim. Therefore, the narrative carries forward. And like, just that is going away. People are so fucking tired of it, because
I'll say something I have been hesitant to say for years, but it's the truth. The truth. I think a lot of white, especially white liberals, capitulate to the black culture talking points, even when they know that they're wrong, but they have to go through these struggle sessions publicly because they are afraid of violence.
Did you listen to Maj Toure over on the Culture Wars with Tim Pool recently? No, there was a very interesting conversation. It was him and I forget who else was on the show. But there was this conversation that came up around black identity. And for folks who are not aware, Maj Toure is a very proud black man who
he's a real G.
He's a real G. Black guns matter. That's right. I actually remember walking through this grocery store one day and I saw Ammo magazine, I think it was, or Guns and Ammo, and Maj Toure was on the front of the magazine. And I was like, wait,
Hell yeah.
I know him. But anyway,
yeah.
this conversation where I forget if it was Maj or the other guest, but they're talking about their grandma. And when they would be talking to their grandma, and the grandma would say, "Why are you talking so proper?" He's like, "You mean why am I talking correctly?" And like getting pushback from his grandma because he was talking proper, which was code for you're talking like a white guy. And that was wrong. And I forget if it was Maj again or the guest, but they made the point that it almost feels like, as a black man, they look at their culture, their community, and they feel that a lot of the folks who speak out against speaking proper or you know the coded whiteness, right, are folks who really don't want to see black folks succeed. They don't want to see them do things that will lead them to success by embracing ideas like meritocracy. We saw Black Lives Matter, Remzo, go through and say meritocracy is a sign of whiteness, is a sign of like racism. And that argument, it's no, I'm sorry. Go ask any NFL player, right? Is meritocracy a symptom of racism? No, meritocracy is the way you actually win a Super Bowl. Like that's the idea that we need to get back to. And for a lot of folks in the black community, and Remzo, I think this is why we've seen such a change over the past, say 5-10 years, especially with the advent of Trump, is a lot of black guys are starting to step away from this very regressive mindset that you have to signal to your tribe, your team, that I get it by I act in this type of way, or I say these types of things, versus just talking like a normal person, right? And that's not a race thing. That's not a culture thing. That's just let's live in the real world and be rational, logical human beings. And yes, we'll have our emotion that will seep into these conversations, but let's always go back to, again, the objective truth, not my truth or my bias, my perspective. Let's take that perspective and then extrapolate it forward. Is your lived experience truly like a unique lived experience? And damn, that sucks. Or is it something that's overarching, right? Is it a recurring theme from yourself and others? Like I used to hear, Remzo, and I'm sure you've heard this too, like the old argument, if you're a black parent, you have to talk to your kids about the talk, right? About what happens when you get pulled over by a police officer. I had that talk. I'm a white dude living in upstate New York, as white can get. And I remember my dad saying, you get pulled over, keys out of the ignition, on top of the dash, window down, hands at 10 and 2. And you sit there and you wait until that officer comes up to the door and you answer their questions. You are polite, you're respectful. That's not a white thing. That's just a thing. And that right there, like, it's not a black thing. It's just a thing. Like, this is where it frustrates me to no end, Remzo, is that there's idea that my truth is so unique. It's so like nobody else can possibly experience it. But, and again, going back to the Duke lacrosse case, now you add in the advent of social media, my truth turns into, well, does this actually fit the truth? And we can get out of these corporate media narratives and just start talking to each other, which I think is one of the biggest fears of the collective left and the collective corporate structures, because the moment they lose control, they lose the ability to disseminate what is truth and what is the truth versus my truth, the more difficult it is for them to continue to push and mold society in the way that they want it to be, whether that's a collective good thing or a collective bad thing. But Remzo, give us one final point here before we do a quick ad, and then we'll bring things home with a really shocking case out of New York City. Not Daniel Penny, a different one. But what say you to wrap this one up?
Yeah, the moment that they lose control over the everything is racist narrative, that I mean, their whole everything falls apart. We're seeing the Hitler argument fall apart. We're seeing the white supremacy argument fall apart. It's over. And they're scrambling. And moments like this, in which this woman, and I want to know what prompted her to finally come out and tell the truth. That's amazing. I remember one of my jobs I had a way under back was I was a mall cop in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. And believe it or not,
Remzo Blart.
without the moped, we had a lot of guys who were legal U.S. residents from Senegal. So we're talking, These guys are like fresh off the boat, but they've been here. They're residents. They used to work as baggage handlers at Dulles Airport during the day. They do a full shift there. They take a few hours off, and then they'd come to the mall, and they would be mall cops for another full shift. So they probably got like maybe 6 hours off a day, and I think a majority of that was commuting. But
Wow.
these dudes were sending their money back to Africa. And I just remember we would be walking around together, and they would see black teenagers from Washington, D.C. or from Maryland, and they would judge the hell out of them. They
Really?
would say things. They would say some of what I would consider like the most racist shit ever. Like, African blacks think that black Americans are embarrassing. And I wouldn't say anything. I'd just be like, damn,
Huh.
I'd just be like, what the heck? And what I saw from a lot of my colleagues who were from Africa is that they're like, how is it in America you can't, you have so many black people that aren't capable of living professional, average, not successful, average lives? Why is it that a majority of the ones I see on the subway or the ones I see in DC are not doing well? We had one guy who would come in from Maryland to work. And when we were going through our licensing to get our license to be an unarmed security officer, you had the one African guy who was a journalist back in Senegal who spoke 3 languages. He spoke French, he spoke English, learning English, and then he spoke another like dialect language. He looked at this dude who was struggling to read because we had to read from these PowerPoints off in the class. And he asked him, how many languages do you speak? And the guy was just like, I only speak English. He's like, how do you not know how to read your own language? That's all I got to say.
Did you ever see the video of the Baltimore guys reading the expression "Aaron earned an iron urn"?
No.
Okay, we're gonna watch that after we pay some bills here really quick. So, Remzo, prepare your heart. But
Aaron
first,
earned an iron urn.
You'll see. Here you go, folks. We're going to go ahead and give a shout out, yes, to our awesome studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle. Stick around. And yes, I see all of you folks, the 100 plus or so folks who've joined us here live on Twitter, x.com today. Thank you. We are live. If you want to go ahead and tell Remzo and I how we are so wrong or so right, we'd love to hear about it. Head down below and let us know your thoughts in the comments. But let's go ahead and give some love to our awesome studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle. Hey folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle? And how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at The Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show. Okay, here we go. We're gonna share this really quick.
I said, Baltimore accents, say this phrase out loud. Earn, and earn. Hold on, my earn. Aaron, earn, and iron, earn. Damn, what the fuck? We really talk like that? Yeah. Let me see it. Earn. Let me see it. Earn, the iron. What? Earn, the iron. No, Aaron earned an iron. Earn, iron. No, dummy. Earn, and iron. Yo, what's earn. Dummy. It's not that, dummy. It's Aaron. It's earned and iron, dummy. Aaron earned and iron earn. Earned and iron earn. Iron. Fuck.
You know, just by doing this one challenge, all 4 of those gentlemen went and voted for Donald Trump.
I saw one post and it was like, oh, so this is the Chris Rock origin story. Aaron earned an iron earn. Oh man, okay. I remember watching that for the first time. I was like borderline pissing my pants laughing so hard. Just the moment of realization when he goes, the fuck, we sound like that.
I got married in Baltimore, and what I did for my groomsmen was I got us hotel rooms at this Holiday Inn Express near the Baltimore airport, and we got there really early and we couldn't check in yet, so we hung around the back of the hotel where they had like a patio, and I kid you not, there were 2 guys, one was an employee, one was his friend, and they were drinking malt liquor. And I was just like, well, we could share this space, right? So we're sitting at the one bench and they're sitting at the other bench. And I don't know what happens, but one of my good buddies from the Army, Wyatt, he starts just like chatting them up. And I don't know what it was, but my best man went because he was nervous being around 2 black guys from Baltimore. And he went to like go, do something, take a phone call. And like a couple hours later, me and my buddy and these 2 guys, we all started drinking together. They were really into learning how to fly drones, which is so funny that I bring this up with the whole New Jersey situation. So the 4 of us are just having a time. But as my friend comes back, and he is like, white as mayonnaise from the, upper crust elite of Northern Virginia, he comes over and he's just looking at us, and the 4 of us are just like having a good time. And then as they leave and he comes by, he's like, what were you guys talking about? It's like, you heard what we were talking about? He's like, no, all I heard was
Little did you know, you actually were having a malt liquor with these fine gentlemen from iron earns. Yeah.
Maybe no, I don't know.
Well, you know what? I'm just gonna say this. I know there's a bunch of folks who are like, man, Brian and Remso are really toeing the line. Guys, I lived in Philadelphia for just shy of a decade. Literally, I was like the only white guy on my block. Pretty much every place I lived in Philly. I lived in 3 different houses. And like the fact that, I mean, literally, the last place I lived there, across the road, there was a chop shop. I'm pretty sure it was a garage that only did garage work after 9 p.m. Okay. But like literally one day I was out front and the guys were sitting outside having a drink. They're like, come on over, let's talk. And I sat there for about 3 hours and we just shot the shit, had a grand old time, talked football, talked how much I'm a Cowboys fan and how I'm so stupid for being in Philadelphia, like all shit, and busting my balls. And you know what? It was fun. It was a good, fun conversation. And this is the thing too. When you remove the racial things, right? And hey, for everybody who's sticking around throughout the entire show, kudos to you, because this is the actual piece I want you to take away from those first 2 stories, is that when you remove the woke bullshit, you remove the racial undertones that people try to creep in to create controversy, people are just people. Like we were just dudes.
I am every white person's favorite Latino.
You're my favorite Latino, Remzo.
Damn straight.
Damn straight, brother. All right. Let's go to our last story here today, Remzo. We're getting hard pressed for time.
I got one thing I say because
Go
the
for it.
timing is great, and I don't know if I'll ever have the time to say it. And I say this in my first book too, but like when I was living in Alabama, I went on a date with this one black girl, and during the date, what I didn't realize was that I was the only not black dude. She considered me white. She's like, "You're the only white guy I've ever gone out with. What would your parents think about you going out with a black girl?" And I said, "I don't really think they'd care." And she said, "I think my parents would probably be upset." That was the only date we ever went on. Very nice girl. But what's funny is I saw, like, we're connected on Facebook or Instagram. What's hilarious is that almost close to 10 years later, she's marrying a white dude.
You planted the seed. Look at you. You gave her hope. She's like, wow. If I know that Remzo exists, there must be hope elsewhere out there. And you
like
sure enough, Remzo.
Now. I think I like the white meat.
She's like, Aaron's urn? Did he earn that iron urn? All right, Remzo Martinez. Let's go. And I hate to end the show on such a shitty story. But let's just start out. Murder's bad, folks. Murder is bad.
Murder is bad.
So Taylor Lorenz, everybody's favorite former Washington Post psychopath, she is the same Taylor Lorenz who, if you're not wearing 4 masks in 2024, that you are what'd she say? You are you're raw dog in the air. That's what she says.
Air, yeah.
You're raw dogging air because you're not wearing 4 masks. Oh, she is a sweetheart. And by the way, she's also apparently severely mentally ill because she was on Piers Morgan over the past week talking about Brian Thompson, United Healthcare CEO, who was murdered in cold blood, assassinated at 6:45 in the morning as he was walking into an investors meeting in downtown New York City by Luigi Mangione. And she, Taylor Lorenz, says that she got a tingle up her leg, Remzo. Okay, she didn't say that. I was channeling her inner Chris Matthews, but she comes pretty close to saying it. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
I do believe in the sanctity of life, and I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Of Americans that he's murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
But why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because
it's the eyes. Just gentlemen, it's always the eyes. Pay attention to her eyes. If you see crazy in her eyes, which Taylor Lorenz, if you're watching along with us, definitely has, run.
Because it wouldn't fix
You seem to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year.
Oh, there's the pivot. There's the pivot.
People
say it and articulate, Remzo. What's she doing here?
She's trying to create a nothing burger in the situation by deflecting, by not answering the question, which is she liked the fact that this guy got killed. Yep. But she's trying to create a gross generalization to justify that.
Yep. And by the way, the rest of the video is literally just a minute of her just trying to justify being filled with joy and these mental gymnastics of, well, now we're having the conversation. That's what a terrorist does, guys. I'm sorry. Like that's terrorism. Terrorism is to enact some type of violence, to enact fear, to start a conversation. What the fuck? And I'm sorry. Like I just, Remzo, I don't know how we've gotten to a point in 2024. Like this
notice how as soon as I started coming on the show weekly, Brian's number of F-bombs have just increased exponentially.
I lost my shit, dude, because it's people like Taylor Lorenz. Like, it's one thing to have a different opinion. Like, let's have a talk about healthcare policy. I've had debates on the show many time about healthcare policy, but to just black and white celebrate the murder, the assassination of someone who is a quote unquote figurehead for the health insurance entities out there is psychotic. And it's this type of mentality, this Taylor Lorenz mentality, and being able to promote this shit that actually makes things more dangerous for us as a society. Because what Taylor Lorenz is doing is excusing literal murder. Okay, not like
the
this.
People who said that George Floyd was intentionally killed are celebrating the brazen daylight killing of a random person.
Yes, and all in the name of, well, this guy represents an entity that is health insurance that is bad. And don't get me wrong, you're right. There are absolutely issues that happen in the healthcare world that are horrible, and a lot of it's due to overreaching government policies. Celebrating the murder of a guy who is a figurehead is not going to solve anything. As a matter of fact, Remzo, I dare say it's going to make things worse.
You know, to kind of bring everything full circle, which is what I love to do. Daniel Penny will be JD Vance's guest at the Army-Navy game today.
Sure will.
And I think that is a remarkable thing. And I think it also doubles down as to why JD Vance was not just the best political choice, but also the best cultural choice. Because much like the ramifications of Duke lacrosse and all the other stuff that we have seen target everyday working class people, and might as well say it, allow working class and poor white Americans who are put into this category as the forever bad guy. Not only is this bad for white people, this is bad for black people, this is bad for Asians, Hispanics. It's just, you know, who are we going to target as the victim and oppressor class today? We're all victims. Yep. We are all victims when this happens. But for him to take Daniel Penny to the game and basically say, this man is right next to me, this man is my friend, this man represents the good in us, we're done. No more today of even Republicans, because Republicans were also just as bad as this at this growing up. And Republicans, when they could have said something, used to not say anything. 10 years ago, it would have been, well, you know, we're going to let the courts decide what this Daniel Penny individual's fate is. We will not comment on cultural issues. It's like, no.
And this right here, Remzo, this is where all my F-bombs, unfortunately, have come from. Because as I became a new dad, right, all the things that we used to talk about in libertarian world, and this is going to be a little quick rant, right? But when we look at whether it's libertarian world, whether it's the world of politics, social policy, whatever it may be, it always was theoretical. It was always something like, well, this ideal world would look like X, Y, and Z, right? And we would paint the picture. And then I became a dad. And everything stopped being theoretical and started being real. So when I used to see stories of illegals who would murder American citizens, the argument that I would not necessarily agree with, but I would at least entertain was murder is going to happen across the board, right? So we can't just look at a group of people who also are committing the same things, the same acts of violence against others as a normal American citizen would. It's not uniquely immigration issues. And I'm like, no, stop. They shouldn't be here. Like, just stop the pretending, right? Like, let's address it as it is. It's not a matter of like, oh, murder happens from anybody. It's a matter of these people objectively shouldn't be here. Therefore, anything they do illegal should not have happened, because they being here in the first place is the reason. Well, I mean, that's the first thing that they broke, but that is a reason why that ended up happening, right? And this is where I'm so tired of the make-believe world, like this utopian mentality from both the woke left and the woke right, because you see this happen where the ideal becomes more of the pursuit versus the real world. And the reality is, Remzo, you and I have talked about this many a time. We're never going to get perfection. We're never going to get to the utopia. It's always going to be some type of yin and yang. So at the very least, we have an obligation on our side of the political aisle to call out the bad across the board, regardless, and lead with what is good, right? So like we should be able to say murder is bad, regardless if it's a George
silence is violence, Brian. But silence is violence.
Shame on me, goddammit. But like whether it's a George Soros acolyte or if it's a United Healthcare CEO, murder is bad. Just stop excusing away like these issues.
Bad, okay?
Okay. But also, Remzo, right? Like we should be able to objectively call out good culture and bad culture. It's not a matter to say, oh, this group of people who enacts this bad culture are bad people. No. I'm saying the culture is bad. You yourself are not a bad person. I believe that you can do good things, but it is important for us to call out the bad stuff when it's there. And when I see people celebrating murder, or I see people celebrating the Duke lacrosse myth and destroying those guys' lives, when I see people like Caitlin Clark bending the knee to the woke narratives that are destroying our ability to coalesce around some type of national identity, yes, I do believe it's important for us to call it out, say bad is bad, good is good. And by the way, that doesn't make me not a libertarian for saying I have values. What it makes me is a rational, common sense person. More or less, I'm a common sense extremist from the 1990s, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Remzo, we're going to go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation. Where do you want to go ahead and leave the audience for today? Any final thoughts as we wrap things up?
Two truths.
Hit me with that.
Truth. Angel Reese is cooler than Caitlin Clark. Secondly, Taylor Lorenz does not season her food.
She does not season her food. Also, gentlemen, just again, it's always the eyes. The eyes are the warning. If you have a lady that you're trying to pursue and her eyes look like Taylor Lorenz, run, because she's scary and probably has a lot of baggage and or a lot of mental issues up top, which we can say out loud because it's true. So with that, yes, please do not live by your truth. Live by the truth. Avoid Taylor Lorenz at all costs. And with that, please hit that magical subscribe button if you enjoyed today's conversation. If you're following us on Twitter, because yes, we are airing live on x.com. Please go down below. Let us know what your thoughts were on today's episode. Please go ahead, give it a like, give it a retweet. What do they call those now, Remzo? A repost, a reshare, something like that. But go ahead, give us some love. And also, you can the button thingy. Hit the button thingy. Please do. And also find yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. You can find Remzo on X at Hey Remzo, Instagram at Go Remzo. And as for the program itself, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is you consume your video content, you can find the Brian Nichols Show. Or if you're listening to us through your earbuds, as you're doing whatever it is you do, working out, driving your car, walking your dog, feeding your baby.
Raw dogging air.
That's right. How dare you put your 7 masks on, Remzo, and get your 5th booster. If you are watching us there, hit the subscribe button.
I'm gonna miss Bidenisms. I'll say that. Much like when he left the first time, I'm gonna miss Bidenisms.
I just missed the Roomba.
Here's the thing.
My new favorite meme template, by the way, is the Michael Bay music in the background, the doon 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 doon, and it's Joe Biden walking away, and they're asking him the question, and he does the little turnaround. Yeah, like that little meme. That's one of my favorite outros now. For whatever I'm trying to gaslight someone, just like, am I? Good times. All right.
Follow the JD Vance office meme.
Oh, that will forever be. And by the way, we are going to have to do, Remzo, a not Amp America week in review. We're going to do an Amp America year in review. We're going to talk about some of the top stories from 2024. I have a feeling, let's see, Joe Biden's debate performance, Donald Trump almost getting his brains blown out on national television, JD Vance doing his Jim Halpert face, and a slew of other very notable outcomes here during the 2024 year. A lot we're going to have to unpack there, buddy. So if folks, you want to go ahead and check out that year in review, hit subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is you get your podcasts. And with that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and say goodbye today. Thank you for joining us live on X. And if you're joining us afterwards, thank you for joining us. With that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show for our good buddy Remzo Martinez, editor-in-chief from Amp America. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.